Christmas Eve on BBC One. At 6:30, Wogan in Hollywood with veteran comedian George Burns. Then at 7:10, Into the Bunko booth with Paul Daniels. At 8, All Creatures Great and Small and a Rare Purchase.
What happens here? Your eyes have gone quite green.
There's a blind date for Bruce Willis and Kim Basinger at 9:50.
Walter, if you'll just drop me up at the nearest hotel.
What? And bring an end to this glorious evening?
At 11:25, families split by the threat of war in the Gulf celebrate together by satellite. Then at 12:25, Midnight Caller.
And in the morning, look at the faces of your kids when they head for the tree to open their presents. And just take a moment to feel the warmth that comes over you.
Happy Christmas from BBC One.
Tell me, dear, what's going on out there?
On 2 now, trouble for Peggy Ashcroft and Judy Davis in David Lean's A Passage to India. Here on BBC One at 6 o'clock, the news with John Humphreys.
Good evening. Salman Rushdie has said he won't publish a paperback version of the Satanic Verses, and he told the BBC, "I hope to come out of hiding soon." Saddam Hussein has said Israel will be Iraq's first target if war breaks out. Mr. Gorbachev gets his way, there will be a referendum on the country's future. Salman Rushdie, the author of the Satanic Verses, has agreed not to publish a paperback version of his book or to allow any more translations of it into other languages. Mr. Rushdie made the concessions after a secret meeting with Islamic scholars and diplomats. He said tonight that he is seeking closer ties with the Islamic faith, but some Muslims have said the book should be withdrawn completely.
Salman Rushdie has been in hiding under police guard for 22 months. But in recent weeks, he's made a number of appearances in public after being encouraged by calls from some former Muslim critics for the death sentence or fatwa to be lifted. Today, Mr. Rushdie agreed not to publish a paperback version of the Satanic Verses and not to allow further translations while any risk of offence exists. He made the concessions after a meeting with Islamic leaders, including an Egyptian government minister, at a secret location. Mr. Rushdie said he did not agree with any statement in the Satanic Verses uttered by any of the characters who insult the Prophet Muhammad or who cast aspersions upon Islam.
Rushdie was actually unjustly condemned. He's not the enemy that the Muslims thought he was. And when they realize that, I'm sure the fatwa will go, and it will be time for Rushdie to resume normal life again.
But one Muslim activist said today's statement by Mr. Rushdie did not go far enough.
He has missed another golden opportunity. My message to him is that he should call a total withdrawal of that offensive material.
Since it was first published in 1988, the Satanic Verses has sparked controversy around the world. In Britain, there were protests supporting the death sentence. Several bookshops in Britain were firebombed. In March last year, Britain and Iran broke off diplomatic relations over the affair, only recently restored. But it remains to be seen whether today's moves by Mr. Rushdie will completely heal the rift and lead to Iran calling off the fatwa against him.
Earlier I spoke to Mr. Rushdie on the phone and asked him what he thought it would now take for him to be able to resume a normal life.
I can't actually give you a list of requirements, but what I believe is that moment is a great deal closer today than it was yesterday, because goodwill replaces ill will and it creates a different climate. And what happened today was an event of great goodwill. In a way, it was a very moving event. The good spirit in the room was very touching to me, the openness and positive spirit with which people came to the meeting, and in which I hope I also went to the meeting, created an atmosphere which was, one could almost say, affectionate. And after all, this is the culture and this is the world which is closest to my heart. And for me to find a way of being rejoined to it is very important. One of the scholars there actually said during the meeting that what they most earnestly wanted was to reclaim me for the community, and I responded that I too wish to reclaim them.
Mr. Rushdie, all this has taken an awfully long time to happen.
Well, right at the moment, I simply feel very happy that it has finally happened. I have throughout this time one of the things that's kept me going is that I have believed very profoundly that the moment would come when people would be willing to listen to what I had to say with an open mind, and when it would be possible to sit down in a room and to stand up and to shake hands. And that's what happened today. And it seems to me, well, I wish it had happened a year ago. I wish none of this had ever happened. But given that what's happened has happened, the past is the past, and I believe that this isn't the end of it, but this is, I very strongly believe, the beginning of the end.
And that means that you'd expect to be able to come out of hiding quite soon?
I hope so, very much.
Salman Rushdie speaking to me a little earlier. President Saddam Hussein has said that Israel would be his first target if war broke out in the Gulf. In an interview with Spanish television, he said he would launch an attack on Tel Aviv even if Israel wasn't involved in the conflict. The Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir said if Israel was attacked, it would hurt Iraq in the most serious way possible. Tonight, Iraq recalled all its ambassadors to UN Security Council countries for talks in Baghdad. Parts of this report from John Simpson concerning President Saddam were censored by the Iraqis.
Is the master of the unexpected. He has to conduct his foreign policy by means of television interviews. His latest line in an interview with the Spanish is to warn that he'll fire off missiles against Israel if Iraq is attacked. That's certainly one option. The prize exhibit at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Baghdad is the helmet of an Israeli pilot. And Saddam Hussein knows very well how hard it would be for the Arab countries who've sided with the Americans if this turned into a war between Iraq and Israel. The vast, desolate monuments here to the casualties of Saddam Hussein's wars are a reminder of the degree of war weariness in Iraq. Yet it isn't absolutely out of the question, even at this late stage, that Saddam Hussein could pull his troops out of Kuwait. There are those here who think he still doesn't believe that the Americans are really serious about fighting, and that if they can convince him finally that they are serious, he might cave in. But the alternatives to war are getting fewer, and given the figure that Saddam Hussein likes to cut, it'll be hard for him to make the necessary concessions in the available time. John Simpson, BBC News, Baghdad.
The Soviet Parliament has voted for a nationwide referendum to decide whether the Soviet Union should be kept together as a federation of equal republics. There are 15 republics, but 6 boycotted today's debate, and some say they want nothing to do with the new Union Treaty proposed by Mr. Gorbachev. The Parliament approved another referendum on the question of whether land should be privately owned.
After the high drama of last week, Congress got down to the complex business of decision-making today. There were signs of frayed tempers at times, but President Gorbachev emerged with approval on several key issues. The draft of his Union Treaty was adopted as the basis for future debate, though at least 5 republics are utterly opposed to it, and 2 referendums are to be held.
The opinion of people on the essential questions of the life of this country, and I regard the question on private ownership of land as one of them, should be clarified by the people. And on the Soviet Union as a federative state, the people should express themselves seriously and responsibly.
A proposal to drop the word socialist from the name of the country was voted out. It remains the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Our whole history shows that we should preserve it. I'm glad that Congress said yes to this name. It comes with blood. It comes to the soul of each of us, each Soviet person.
It's a very silly decision to say so. It's long that the country is not Soviet, not socialist, and not union, and not republics.
The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is to continue in name at least, but there's considerable unease now about what measures President Gorbachev may feel compelled to take to hold that union together. Carol Walker, BBC News, Moscow.
The Northern Ireland Secretary Peter Brook has said the IRA's Christmas ceasefire, the first for 16 years, offers a glimmer of hope to the people of Ulster. But some unionist politicians say Mr. Brook is being naive.
Belfast today looked like any other provincial city on a Christmas Eve, except for the armed police and soldiers among the shoppers. Security won't be stepped down because of the IRA's statement. Any break in the violence is welcome, but many are deeply cynical about a 3-day ceasefire, and unionists are very angry at the government's words of praise for it.
I find the Secretary of State's comments reprehensible and dangerous, because what he is saying, that he is welcoming the fact that they are saying your execution is postponed until after Christmas.
But the Northern Ireland Secretary Peter Brooke this afternoon stood over his view that the IRA's publicly announced suspension of violence is good news.
Although they have had periods of non-violence over Christmas, this is the first time since the early 70s when they have publicly said that they were having one. And if it should turn out to be a signal for something in 1991, then I think would be wrong to be dismissive of it at this juncture.
It might well be that there's new thinking going on within their own organisation. It might well be that they're testing the water. And I hope it is a signal to the community that, in effect, there is some serious thinking going on within their organisation.
There has been a debate in Sinn Féin and the IRA over methods, but there are no doves as such in the Republican movement, so a long-term end to the campaign seems as far away as ever.
The search is still going on to find a heart donor for a critically ill 6-day-old baby. Christy Strachan, who's being kept on a ventilator, was born with an incurable condition in which part of his heart failed to develop. Surgeons at Great Ormond Street Hospital in London are standing by to carry out an emergency transplant operation on the baby. Tonight, his condition is said to be stable. British troops preparing for Christmas in the Gulf will be linked tonight with their families in Britain and Germany in a special programme on BBC One. In his message to them, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Robert Runcie, said, "We will pray for peace because it's peacemaking that unites us."
The British Army is happily buried under an avalanche of goodwill, 100 tons of it to be exact, some direct from the manufacturer, others from private individuals in parcels addressed to P.O. Box 3000. Things to eat, things to use, things to listen to.
It brings a little lump in the throat. It's nice to know that people are thinking about you.
Out in the desert, the parcels are being distributed all day to forward units like this company of the Royal Army Ordnance Corps. Identical packages to every soldier from the British Legion and a great deal else besides. Just when you think that even Santa Claus is wearing combat fatigues this year, it turns out he isn't.
Jerry, what would you like for Christmas? I want to go home. Thank you. Let me dry your tears. There you go. Get it.
Though the authorities have tried to play down the religious side of things, the soldiers in the desert want a real Christmas, and they're having one. Example, the reconnaissance unit with perhaps the most dangerous job of all, out in front of one of the armoured brigades. They can also sing. So here they are, A Squadron, the Queen's Dragoon Guards, Silent Night.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright.
And there'll be more carol singing in the Gulf and a link up with their families in Christmas with the Gulf at 25 past 11 tonight on BBC One. The next news at 9:30. Till then, good evening.
Hello. Now this weather system means a wet, windy and green Christmas for us all. This system of fronts will cross the country tomorrow, giving 4 to 6 hours of really quite heavy rain with brighter, showery weather following for a time from the west. But this next set of fronts will do just the same again on Boxing Day. So an unsettled, windy spell of weather, lots of isobars on the chart. Let's watch the computer handle the wind and rain in the next 24 hours. You'll see that area of rain coming down across the country during the course of the night, moving across England and Wales tomorrow. Showery weather getting in from the west, but yet another massive rain getting up towards Ireland tomorrow night. This evening, though, most places are fine. In fact, it's quite cold in the east with 1 or 2 patches of ice this evening, even perhaps 1 or 2 patches of shallow fog as well. But by midnight, rain and some sleet getting into western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and that wind, rain and sleet moving eastwards across many parts of the country during the night. Quite heavy rain too. The winds picking up to severe gales in some exposed places, gusting up to 75 miles an hour in places by the end of the night. Quite a cold night too. 2 Celsius is 36 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, that band of quite heavy rain moving eastwards across the country, followed by brighter weather with heavy showers in places, getting right across the country by the end of the afternoon. A windy day, as I've said. Those are the average wind speeds at midday tomorrow. A raw, cold start, but by the end of the day, temperatures getting up to a fairly mild 8 Celsius, 46 degrees Fahrenheit. And then on Boxing Day, after a fine bright start to frost in places, another band of rain and some sleet moving from the west across all parts of the country during the day and staying windy. Enjoy.
Christmas, only fools and horses.
That was our last chance. I have never been so insulted in my life.
Well, sit down, bruv. Let me have a try.
So worried about him. Spent most of my life bringing him up. Michael Jackson's got bubbles. I got Rodney.
Only fools and horses. Christmas Day at 5:10 on BBC One.
Now on BBC One, Midlands Today with Sue Beardsmore.
A taxi driver is killed. His widow asks for help to find his murderer. Good evening. Also tonight, shopping on a Sunday. The laws are ignored. And what a Christmas gift for a Midlands songwriter.
Left to play, Saviour's Day. Is the Christmas #1.
But first this evening, the widow of a murdered taxi driver has said he lived in constant fear of being attacked. Steve Johnson's body was found on a remote pathway. Hours earlier, he'd told his radio controller he'd picked up a passenger. Taxi drivers in Mr. Johnson's hometown are putting up a reward, and they're taking extra security measures. Paul McRae reports.
Just after 3 on Saturday morning, Steve Johnson said he'd picked up a passenger and was driving towards Mowcop and Packmoor. 4 hours later, his body was found in the village of Mowcop on the Staffordshire-Cheshire border. He'd been attacked with a knife.
It may be, of course, that the person who had the lift or the ride from Hanley Road, Hanley, is a legitimate customer. And if that is the case, I would urge that legitimate customer to come forward to us and eliminate himself from our inquiries.
Mr. Johnson was married with 2 young children. He'd started working nights to buy Christmas presents for his family. His widow, comforted by his mother, said he'd carried on despite earlier attacks.
Fools putting their hands around his neck, while he's been driving.
Was he frightened?
Yeah.
His murder has meant drivers taking extra precautions, as their spokesman Glyn Salt told BBC Radio Stoke.
They're making sure that the base operator knows where they're going and how many passengers they're picking up and what description, so that if there is any problems, we can call for assistance immediately.
The police want information about anyone seen in Hanley at 3 in the morning on Saturday.
Be it one man, one woman, or a number of people who were either trying to hail a taxi or thumb a lift. If anyone who saw persons of that description would contact us at the incident room on Stoke-on-Trent 717 999.
Paul McRae reporting. Hundreds of shops across the Midlands ignored Sunday trading laws and opened to try to attract last-minute Christmas shoppers. Birmingham and Coventry councils took out injunctions against major stores. In Derby, the City Council has been criticised for not doing the same. Peter Wilson reports.
BHS in Derby opened, flouting the Sunday trading laws and attracting many last-minute shoppers. The busy city centre was mirrored in many other towns around the region, despite last week's court injunctions. Dixon's was another high street chain which opened its doors on the last Sunday before Christmas. Although queues formed outside the jewellers, attracted by the early sale, opinion was divided over the rights and wrongs of Sunday shopping.
I think it's nice, yeah, it's nice that it's not so busy, that you can come round as a family and not get trampled in the rush, especially when you've got 2 children.
I don't think it should have any effect in terms of religion, because I believe that's a minor part of society now anyway.
Is it affecting your appreciation of Sunday?
Well, it does, yes, because it's a day of it which is put aside as the Lord's Day.
Don't agree with it.
We don't agree with it.
We just come from church.
Because he works in a shop, so I don't fully agree with it, really.
What's your reaction then if you're in retailing? Would you like to be working on a Sunday? Would you?
No, I wouldn't, no. I think, they haven't got very much time off visitors. They've only got 2 days, so they should have today off as well.
The City Council has promised to take legal action to stop stores continuing to test the 1950s Shops Act. The Shop Workers Union, USDOR, has criticised many councils for failing to take a firm stand on the issue. Both Coventry and Birmingham were covered by the court injunctions against the major stores, but many smaller ones still opened, and teams of environmental officers mingled with the shoppers and have promised to take action against them in the new year.
In Thailand, Karen Smith, the Midland teenager jailed for 25 years on drugs charges, is preparing to spend her first Christmas behind bars. As Richard Uridge reports from Bangkok, her parents will be visiting her with presents from home.
They might be tourists here to avoid the English winter, but Eric and Marilyn Smith from Solihull aren't in Thailand to see the sights. Behind the barbed wire at Klong Prem, their daughter Karen is being held, sentenced last week by a Bangkok court to 25 years for drug smuggling.
Tomorrow will be Karen's first Christmas away from home, and even with the hope of a royal pardon, it probably won't be her last. But with her parents in Thailand, she tells me she's determined to enjoy it. Their being here is the best present I could possibly have, she said. What is Christmas going to be like inside for Karen?
Not too bad, really. They're dressing up for Christmas. They're all getting together and doing themselves a big meal. A bit of a sing-song. I think they'll enjoy it. That's a bit like being at home, but she'll enjoy it.
Now, she's also asked for some clothes, Mrs. Smith, to be taken in. Why is that?
Because she can wear her own clothes over Christmas. She asked me to get some jeans for her and a top, which I bought from home. Instructions.
But, inevitably, the Smiths can't stay forever. They have to fly home on January the 8th. Until then, they'll be seeing Karen whenever prison rules allow it. But soon she'll be on her own, and only then will the full magnitude of her 25-year sentence sink in.
One of the worst fires in Nottinghamshire in recent years has caused damage estimated at £1 million. It destroyed a warehouse at Newark, and flames could be seen 15 miles away. As John Hemingway reports, it's now believed to have been started by a discarded cigarette.
Demolition work's already begun on the charred beams and pillars. The 150-year-old maltings had been packed with antique and reproduction pine furniture. The walls were cladded with wood. When the flames took hold, all fire crews could do was to try to stop the fire spreading to nearby factories. 36 hours later, the smouldering ruins were still being damped down. The building had been shared by several small businesses. The fires meant disaster for them.
It means a personal loss of stock and, rather than to me, an upset of other people who were trading in the place who are now losing their livelihood. Probably upwards of 20 people.
Hardly anything was salvaged from the wreckage. The remains of the building were so unstable that parts of it had to be knocked down before fire investigators could start their work.
We've been looking at three possible causes, electrical, smoking and arson, because one of the things we now do with big fires, we always start on the premise that it was arson to start with, and we'll see if we can prove that it wasn't. Now I've come to the conclusion so far that we're down to three possible causes, and I think smoking is the most likely cause.
The building was in the process of being sold. Now it's estimated it would cost several £1 million to rebuild.
For many people, the circus is a part of Christmas. This Christmas, 100 school children from the Midlands found themselves a part of the circus. Liz Munro explains.
The workshop was partly a thank you present to some of the school children. They'd taken part in a council project at Worcester Country Park to help the disabled. But the invitation to become circus entertainers for the day was extended to all pupils at Vale of Evesham School, and just about everyone accepted.
moderate learning difficulties and severe learning difficulties, and they thought that it might be nice for them to come at this time of year and learn some of the skills here in the circus.
Tracy, what's it like, the cycling?
Hard. You go all right up, but then when you go long, you just go roll back down.
I like when this goes up and down. Has it been easy or difficult? Easy.
Really to invite the children in, as I say, also to learn things and to make them more involved in actually the performance rather than perhaps just coming to see a circus show, that they can take away a memory, a physical memory of actually having been here as well.
Good. Now, one Midland man has more reason than many to be celebrating this Christmas. Chris Eaton from Kinver near Stourbridge last night saw his song Saviour's Day, recorded by Cliff Richard, reach #1 in the charts.
Open your eyes on Saviour's Day. Don't look back or turn away.
For Cliff Richard, Saviour's Day is his third successive Christmas #1. For Chris Eaton, who's been writing for Cliff for 10 years, it's the dream come true.
So there's one song left to play. Saviour's Day by Cliff Richard is the Christmas #1.
Well, I wanted to put a song together with all the sort of romantic pictures of Christmas that I love and are important to me. And I think Christmas is a very important time for all of us to get together with our families. It may only happen once a year. So I wanted to kind of encapsulate that idea, along with people, of all shapes and sizes and walks of life coming together, joining the old and the young ones, the black and the white, and have that real idea of peace and giving yourself to one another, and balancing that up against the fact that it's the greatest gift was, of course, Jesus himself.
32-year-old Chris, who was born in Sedgley, has been a professional songwriter and composer for 9 years. But it was 16 years ago that he became a committed Christian, an act of faith which has given him an affinity with Cliff Richard.
I think we've developed a good working relationship, but more than that, we're both Christians, and I think there's a lot of understanding between us in the spiritual sense.
So this song is going to be the tune that's heard in homes throughout Britain during Christmas this year. What does that do for you?
I think just to know that the song has reached people's hearts. I think it's very important to know that this Christmas, as they listen to the song, hopefully they will not just enjoy that and remember it as the Christmas 1990 #1, but it will speak to them personally about what Christmas is really all about, that it is Saviour's Day.
Open your eyes on Saviour's Day. Don't look back or turn.
Christmas song, not very Christmassy weather, I'm afraid. Fine, clear and cold at first tonight, with a touch of frost, then more cloud and rain later on. Minimum temperature 1 Celsius. A pretty unpleasant start to Christmas Day, I'm afraid. The southerly wind could be gale force at times with heavy rain, but brighter and drier in the afternoon, even a spot of sun. Top temperature 7 degrees Celsius. That's it from us on Midlands Today, and from everyone on the programme, may I wish you a very Merry Christmas.
Look back or turn away. Life can be yours if you only stay. He's calling you on the Saviour's Day. On the Saviour's Day.
Whoever you are, whatever your lifestyle, and whatever's important to you, we'll report it on BBC Television's new daily programme for the people of the East Midlands. East Midlands Today, 6:30 weekdays from January. It's your news programme.
Christmas on BBC One. Bruce Willis is on a blind date.
She's an amazing woman. She just moved back into town. She's staying in a hotel and she wants to meet people.
And Kim Basinger is it.
Don't get her drunk. She loses control completely.
Together, they're in for trouble.
I know your ex-boyfriend's hobby is killing people, but what does he do professionally?
Why don't you just go ahead and do now what you're going to do later anyway, Walter? Just pass out.
Blind Date, tonight's film at 9:50 on BBC One.
And now on BBC One, a very special guest joins Wogan in Hollywood.
Thank you. Thank you. What a reception. What a reception. And these people haven't the smallest idea who I am. Anyway, welcome to Hollywood, the place where no one walks. Here you pay people to walk for you. Soon, people will be born here with no legs at all. Just a clutch and an accelerator pedal. It's the place where even the spiritual leader of 3.4 million Roman Catholics, Los Angeles Archbishop Roger M. Mahoney, pilots his own helicopter over his archdiocese. It's the Hollywood equivalent of the winged chariot. Now, my guest tonight is not only one of the legends of Hollywood, but of the world. Born in New York at the end of the last century to a family who, in his own words, were so poor they couldn't afford to dream. He grew up to perform with some of the greatest performers in America: Groucho and Harpo Marx, Jimmy Durante, Jack Benny, Bob Hope, Georgie Jessel, Eddie Cantor, Milton Berle, Fanny Brice, Al Jolson, stars that were made before television was invented. But a partnership that was to last began in 1933 when my guest met Gracie Allen. An act that began on the stage, moved to radio, and then to TV, where it led the golden age of television in the 50s. Here we are in the slightly tatty age of television in the 90s. And despite open-heart surgery and chain-smoking cigars, this man is as hale and hearty as any you'll meet in a day's walk. It's George Burns. Is that a sign of approval, George, when they greet you rather like monkeys in the zoo?
It's nice. A monkey in the zoo.
You don't do.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's nice to be here.
It's great to have, because the last time we spoke was by satellite.
Yeah. It's nice to be anywhere.
You're here in body as well as spirit, and that's
sure.
good.
I love what I do for a living. It's nice. To be 94 and to get up and to do what you love to do is very important. I get out of bed. I can't make any money in bed. My sister Goldie made a fortune.
But it's not work, isn't it? I suppose you haven't worked.
Let me tell you something.
All your life.
I think that this goes for everybody. Fall in love with what you're going to do for a living. I think you stay around for a long time.
Yes, but you've got to be very lucky.
Well, look, it's tough for people that have to get up and work 6 and 8 hours a day and not like what they do. I love what I do.